Okay, so I got tagged in this one a bunch. J God, if you guys don't know him, is very big in the Call of Duty community. Obviously, he plays a lot of other games that people don't give him credit for. I've met him a couple times. I really like a lot of what he has to say, and he pays attention to a lot of what's going on in the game in general. But he did a video saying Warzone is stale, but they could fix it with one patch. I do agree with... I don't play the exact same way as J God, though. I know he plays a lot more Resurgence. He's a little different than how I play. So, anyways, I thought we'd watch this, and I watched the beginning of it. We'll see.
Since we talk specifically about Warzone and kind of the problem that it's currently having.
Disagree with. The thing is, everybody loves to hate on Call of Duty. They love it, dude. And I think it's not even just they love hating on it in general. I think it's just that there's so many people who played this game in the past. There's more people that have stopped playing Call of Duty at this point than there are people that are actively playing the game. The majority of people, they played back in the original COD, Black Ops series, maybe some of the Modern Warfares, Ghost, back in the good old days before Warzone. This is a big thing I see from people right now is, man, I wish they never created Warzone in the first place. I see a lot of comments of people saying that online. But they've segregated this game into so many smaller communities within it that there's that aspect, but then there's also the aspect of all the people who just don't play the game anymore and just want to see it all burn, or just, you know, like their old style of way that they used to play the game.
Issues that kind of stem back from Warzone 2, where they did a bunch of changes.
Not to say that it's perfect right now.
There's a bunch of other things
by any means
it seems
either.
like they're just letting lack, and part of that's just leading to a stale game. And I think a lot of people can kind of agree with that the game does feel relatively
okay, what time of year is it, everybody? It is the time of year when they start dropping all the information for the new Call of Duties. We had this with E3 back in the day. This is like every single year, it's the exact same thing. And to me, it's always been, it was accelerated more in the past because all I did was play the multiplayer. And back in the day, they actually did do, I mean, not all the way back, but, you know, eventually they started doing season passes that you could buy, but the more season passes, not season passes, DLC that you would buy individual packs for with maps, they started doing that. I think at Black Ops 2, where they even had weapons in the DLC. It was crazy with that Peacekeeper they introduced back then. But then, as more of those DLCs came out, not everybody bought all the DLCs, so you couldn't play with everybody, and the whole community was split apart, whatever. But around this time of year, nonetheless, is when all of the hype from, you know, the game's been, actually, this is way later. We've made it way, at least myself, I've made it way later than I usually play COD. Usually it's just a short period of time when the game launches. That's when I would play the multiplayer for, every year was less and less time. Now I usually play the multiplayer for two to 4 weeks at the most. But they keep the game alive by doing all the seasons and everything off of it. But I was just talking about this earlier, a lot of the seasons that they do are individually updated. So like one season 3, I think it was, Zombies got 0 update to the game. And so then that community's like, forget this. And they go on and play something else because they don't have any content. And this is where the sub communities kind of break. Anyways, I'll
stale, even though if you are actually playing it, it does feel like it's in an okay state. So I wanted to talk about kind of what's leading to that staleness, and maybe talk about some of the issues and even get some suggestions on how they can improve it, because we're going to be stuck with this particular map and this kind of game until we get BO6 that comes out later this year.
Yeah.
And the integration is still going to happen. It just doesn't look like we're going to get a new map until next year.
That's the rumors.
Off the leaks. That's supposed to be
no new map this year.
Sometimes in March, April, somewhere around there.
Likely ranked.
And we'll be able to get that. And if it's stale now, it's definitely going to be stale in October, November, December, if they're not really making any of the changes that I think a lot of people actually want to see. So one of the biggest things that we'll go ahead and talk about specifically is weapon balance. I think this is single-handedly one of the worst things they've done since Warzone 2. Obviously, we had the RPK meta for 100 days, Lockman sub, kind of very limited on what we had.
Yeah, they kept that for a long time.
Kind of on Warzone 1, we had a ton of weapons and tons of metas and tons of variety that even if you weren't using the hardcore meta, you still had like a slightly lower tier of weapon that you could still use and not feel like you're forced or pigeonholed into being and using the meta. Which kind of sucks. So I went to get and put together this real quick.
This is good because he has actual
stats. It was just kind of a feeling that they really hadn't made good changes, or if it was just kind of that's the reality of what's happened. So I went back and I went through every patch notes. Those are available on the Call of Duty website. And you can look at all the various patches with different dates, December 14th, January 11th. There's multiple other updates in between that, but either there wasn't really any weapon changes. Maybe they fixed a bug or whatever that didn't relate to weapons. And this includes pretty much every weapon change we got, except for those instances where it said it moved the range from 12 meters to 12 and a half.
They do a ton of these non-existent nerfs.
Absolute garbage to just garbage, right? And that doesn't really
goes through
make
some
it
of the
part of the pool.
specifics.
So they're almost like faux changes to make it look like they're actually doing some kind of change to the game, but it doesn't actually impact in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Nerfs. 22 noticeable, where it's like, damn, I leveled up this gun. It felt okay, or it might not even, like, it was just barely viable, and they nerf it. And it's like, damn, now I can't use that anymore. That goes to the garbage pile. And then there's a bunch of minor buffs. Some of those fall into the ones where the range is, or 1 damage value. It went from 29 to 30, and it didn't actually change the shots to kill. It's like, what's the point?
Look at how much they prefer to nerf weapons versus buff them, though. Like, the buffs that they do are so minor to some of these things. It is just so negligible. It doesn't affect the game really at all. It makes this terrible gun a little bit better. But they made 22 noticeable nerfs to the guns that are just, like, destroying them. Now, I do think something that is excluding from the noticeable buffs is new weapons that they added to the game that were then the new meta. Right? Like, they added the superior to the game. It instantly becomes the best gun in the game. Technically, that's kind of a buff, but it's also new. So I get that not really being included here as well. But they have so many weapons that are in the game that are being completely underutilized or not utilized at all because they're not, like, they just don't buff them. They don't make them good. And then that doesn't feel as good when you're just taking away something that's fun and making it worse. Now, there is a sense, and I'll talk about power creep, where it's like everything, if everything becomes too big, then we run into a problem where you got to increase the health pool. But I think that's a better way to do it than to just keep nerfing some of the individual guns.
Didn't actually do anything. There's only like one, maybe a couple other ones we can argue on, that there was maybe 1 or up to 5 maybe noticeable buffs, but I couldn't really think of any. When I went through and I looked at that, I was like, I don't really feel like that impacted the game. XRK Stalker was probably one of the main noticeable ones. That's what I put because it allowed it to be a one-shot. People asked for that when the gun dropped. It took them a while, but it came around and got to it. But for the vast majority, but no one's using these. What the hell?
No, nobody's using any.
That's not necessarily how it works either. We talked about this while I was streaming, kind of get your guys' thoughts on it. So we'll discuss that portion as well, because I think buffing stuff dramatically helps casual players in addition to just people that sweat on the game and level up and grind and no life and they play nothing else. They don't care. They already have everything maxed out. So let's go ahead and talk about that portion. So one thing that Warzone 1 struggled with initially was a power creep, but they eventually came around and figured it out. And a power creep, for simple phrasing, let's say that we have these 3 different TTK lines. Essentially, these are the TTKs that we have in Warzone. The lower the number, the faster the TTK. Let's say this number is at 600 milliseconds for close range, 650, and then we have 700. Usually, if a weapon crosses above the 650, 700 range, it basically doesn't get used. If a gun goes below 600, it's considered incredibly broken. Usually
isn't it crazy that within 100 milliseconds, that is how tight this is? But you will, like, it is a matter of life and death in the games where it's like you win the fight or you don't, depending on which one's faster. If both of you are looking at each other at the same time, see each other at the same time, you know, maybe your reaction time is off by, well, if you're playing good enough, it's not going to be off enough.
Somewhere around 610, up to about 635. That's kind of where we've seen most of our most favorable, consistent metas. And if there's multiple guns within that range, people will enjoy picking other things. Even if a gun has great movement and all these other good statistics, if its TTK is 700, we just don't use it, no matter how broken it is, or theoretically how broken it would be, just because the ADS could be bad, the bullet velocity, the damage per mag, there's a lot of variables. And realistically, all they've done is done this. They've basically taken guns that were already in the 635 range, or maybe not even, they were at that 650 range, and they effectively made them worse. taking them out of the viable range, which is usually within this 650 to 600 range, where people can enjoy, hey, you know what? I want to try that gun. Great. That's, it's not meta, but I have fun with it. I really enjoy the Lockman Shroud, for example. Not me in particular. I'm just throwing out a gun. One of my favorite guns is the Kastov 7.62. Right? That is one of my favorite guns. 5.45 would have been cool, but it was never good. Point. So what I would say is make noticeable improvements where you can actually make guns join the meta. We still have more talking points that I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to focus on these specifically. So an example of this is the Rival 9. It has never been meta in Warzone. It has a 660 TTK, as we can see here.
So this is the chart of what he's saying with the time to kill. The FJX Horus, which is a really good gun, has a 610 combined, relative if you like, hit it, head shot, chest shot, neck shot. When you average it out, it's like, if you hit only headshots, it's a 549 time to kill. So it's really fast, but the Superi is even faster. And if you look at, like, I guess the neck and chest multiplier,
FJX Horus,
it becomes a bit better, but the time to kill even on this is 630 in general, but the damage range for this, it's also not accounting for, I guess, or maybe it's in the rest of the stats here. It goes further out, 810, so yeah, out to 25 meters, it goes out to 810 time to kill still, 900, so it beats it at the range for it. But nonetheless, like, I think this is one of the more competitive other guns, but you have to be within a certain range for it. So he's saying if you increase the rate of fire for the Rival 9, you could make it more competitive and bring that time to kill down into a better range. Because if you look, this is 660 for neck, chest, stomach. So if you're going up against chest shots with the Horus versus the chest shots with the Rival 9, you're always going to lose the fight by 50 milliseconds. And if you combine that with faster aim down sight time, you might get that gun up even faster with the Horus by another 30 milliseconds. And now you're beating them by, considerable amount.
We can see a 610. If it's incredibly broken, it'll get nerfed. So really all they can do is increase the fire rate. So if I increase the fire rate to 950, boom, comes down to 632.
Then that's competitive.
There it is. It's competitive with the Superi. It has a fast fire rate, faster than the Superior, not quite as fast as the FJX Horus, and boom, we have a good option as another meta option without being completely broken. It still kills slower than the FJX Horus, and that's just one example that took no thought at all, and we are able to solve that. We went through on stream, we did this for multiple guns, and just show how simple that is.
That would be cool.
And then if it does end up being too good, increase the recoil, lower the bullet velocity. There's other things you can do. Lower the sprint to fire.
This is way too much. What happened in just gaming? Seriously, this is what happens when you play the game a lot, dude. And the thing is like, you will realize this if you play the game for, once you get past 100, 500 hours or something, you'll get to the point where you start trying to use different guns. Like, you start trying to use the Ram 9 and you realize that every single fight you're losing to the Superi. And then, like, this is just the numbers behind it of why it actually matters and how you can look this up without having to go in and put 100 hours in with the gun and realizing, oh, the gun that keeps killing me when I go in gun on gun every single gunfight, this is what it turns out to be. And so then this is the iteration after where it's like, okay, well, if I want the game to then, change something, so we're not using the same guns every single time and losing to the same guns every single time, how do you make that better? So this is like the next iteration of where players are coming from and what J God's talking about with it, which is if you can increase the damage, right? You can increase the base damage for a gun, you could increase the damage range for the gun, you could increase the rate of fire for it. This is like one of the easier variables to control, I think, is what he's saying, to where you can increase the fire rate and just even them out. Realistically, I think this should just be part of the job of the developers. That's where we've gotten more information now, like, in the game, because the only way to figure this stuff out is to run these numbers on these separate websites. And I put it even in my Discord because people ask me about it so much, but I put the some Warzone resources here for True Game Data's website. He does a full breakdown so you can see it as a chart. They did it better with Warzone 3, where now if you go to a gun, you can go in and see the breakdown stats for all of these things and, like, see the damage range. You can see, but it still doesn't give you quite as much information as, like, realistically, like, you do the rest of the math, you do the 5 more steps, and you could figure out the rest of it. To me, I dislike all of this. I wish this was more like what if you saw my video on the VR game Contractors. They have even the way the attachments work. Like, this is why I didn't like the hexagon system that they had back in Warzone 2 with weapons tuning and stuff too. It just gets all way too complicated. Just make it more basic and make it more of an impact. So if you choose something, it has like a 20% change. That's what Contractors does. It just tells you, it helps you by 10%, helps it by 20%. You feel it, you notice the difference. And then what they could even do is just have the rest of these changes just be cosmetic. Where it's like, all right, instead of there being 50 different attachments here, let's just have, 5 main attachments that change things that are more obvious with what they're actually changing. Tell us what they're changing, so we don't need to look up and create all these spreadsheets for things. That's what I'm trying to translate it for you, because I know enough of this, but I know you're not going to sit there and understand all of these little nuances with it all. So if they had that, then you could just change the look of it. Just change what it actually is. I think that would be cooler. And there's still enough like individual attachments that change a bunch of things. Now, I think this is a better middle ground than what they had in Warzone 2. I think it should just be better to organize all of it in the first place, is my biggest thing. But with Black Ops 6, they're probably going to reset everything and screw us. So
MX9,
we'll see.
Another gun that has these types of issues. MX9, boom, 741, 648 TTK. Very competitive, but not quite competitive enough. We need a bigger damage per mag, which we would have if we got the mag upgraded from 32 or whatever the hell it is, and we bump that up to, let's say,
MX9 is so bad.
And boom, all of a sudden, 615 TTK, it's right in there with the FJX Horus. And people would say, you know what? Might not be meta, but I like using that gun. And this is what they're not doing. I mean, this takes me how long to do? Literally no time at all to figure that out. And if it is
I like these ideas for the,
then we dial it back. But the goal should be getting close to this number so that we can have 20 guns within this range.
That would be crazy, dude.
There will always
imagine we had that many options.
Determine the meta. You just playing the game doesn't determine the meta. As a community, the meta gets determined on its own. We go join up, we spectate randoms. 9 out of 10 people will use the same guns just because they want to be as competitive as possible, especially with an environment around skill-based matchmaking. So I think this is probably one of the biggest leading causes, because even when we went from Verdansk to Verdansk 84, not significant map changes. We can't
nerf the aim assist. Yes, even a 5% nerf goes a long way.
Tower, they added Summit.
Dude, we could do a whole discussion on the aim assist. Danny, thank you for the 850 stars, by the way. Also sub to the page. Appreciate you, dude. But there's no shot they're changing aim assist.
They changed some other POIs slightly.
It's going to get stronger. It is going to get stronger before it gets weaker.
Whatever. That wasn't the thing. It was that we had nice, fresh, consistent metas. And even if you didn't want to use the meta, you could still use the Kilo. You could still use about 10 other guns. And this comes to the other part. The snipers were insane.
I kind of disagree with this too. Maybe there is more to it than I even know with how close. Maybe the time to kills were really close back in the day as well, with the growl and such as well. But I think a big part of the early on Warzone 1 era was just people were way worse. This is why they consistently make snipers so much worse every single update, is because people are getting better and better, and the people that are bad are leaving the game. So now the general, like the average player is getting better, and then the bottom end of the average of people that are even trying to snipe is decreasing. So overall, all of the players are so good that like now people are using a Kar 98 in the game that is worse than what it was back in the day. The old Kar 98 was better. They gave us a worse version of it, and everybody's using it and playing better than they ever have.
Give everyone Jug and call it a day, I'd say. A Jug Royal would be crazy.
Like, it is crazy how good people are now with sniping, and so they have to keep on making it worse because people are just way too good. I think that's a big part of it.
Broken in Warzone 1, and the game still felt great. And that goes back to weapon balancing. I think you can make as many snipers one shot, pretty broken, decent bullet velocity, maybe a lot of flinch, But the counter that we had back in Warzone 1 is we didn't have this weird visual shake, which they tried to cut down on, but they just need to remove it entirely. It's not a good gameplay mechanic.
I don't think a lot of the
we had better bullet
MW3
velocity,
guns have it.
so you could actually shoot somebody at range, and the recoils were a little bit more consistent for a lot more guns. So if you wanted to shoot with the Grau, you could. The Kilo, you could. The M4, you could. The AMAX, you could. All these guns, you could shoot people at 110 meters. Yes, that is less skillful, but COD isn't necessarily about skillful. If we're looking for a skillful game, go play Valorant, CSGO, right? Like, the COD has never been that. What made Warzone 1 so great, it was approachable, and it was easy to play. Anyone could pick up, and you could shoot straight, be accurate, and you can get into actual gunfights.
This is the thing that I think a lot of people get confused on too with like floating loot. I see so many people still saying like, bring floating loot back. And it's not as realistic. It doesn't look as good, I would say, but it's a lot easier to manage, especially when you just had it in the past. You'd walk over all your loot. It instantly picked all your loot up. The decisions they made in Warzone 2 are still so crazy to me, where you had to individually pick up loot. It took up your actual slots of your ammo. It was just, or like of your bag. It was just crazy the way they did some of these things.
And if people wanted to snipe, let them snipe. You could shoot them from 150 meters or however long, and you can actually deal with those types of players. Now,
hey, thank you, Farron.
You kind of have to run like a coward, if we're being honest. If you're going up against a Car 98 or an actually good one-shotting sniper for infinite range, you're going to end up having to deal with people, and you can't really do much. You kind of work your way to close the distance. If you get more like BR and less like Call of Duty, Warzone suffers. And that's really the problem that I think they did with Warzone 1. It was like a battle royale that was Call of Duty. Call of Duty game that happened to be a battle royale. Not the battle royale that happened to be Call of Duty. That they shouldn't lean into that. And that's kind of been a problem. So I think that's part of it. So you get that balance of making everyone happy. You can shoot people that snipe. If they snipe you, you're like, damn, good shot. You know, make it challenging on both sides. And I think they missed part of that. And like a lot of people argue, oh, well, they do these things for the bundles. And it's like, that doesn't even make sense. You can go to the store right now, and 80% of the classes, setups, the guns are trash.
This is so true, dude. And I can't understand why Call of Duty doesn't make them good. The loadouts that they put in the store are so bad. Now, here's the thing. They did like this 4th of July bundle, and I kind of wanted to get it. But then I saw the guns that they had in here and the builds for them. And I said, no, thank you. They do so many bad builds in here. I just don't get it. It's I don't know. But I always figured they're for multiplayer. Maybe they're good in multiplayer, because I don't know if people run them or not.
There's no reason to ever touch them. Maybe you want the skin with the execution or the voice lines or whatever. Cool, more power to you. But if you're buying them for the bundles that when you change an attachment, they look like trash, makes no sense from a...
What they were supposed to do back in the day, if you guys remember, was they said with Warzone 2 was that if you got a bundle, then this skin and like the way that the attachments look and everything, you would get it for every single attachment on the gun, not just what is visible here. But they only did that with a couple of packs. I think under the assault rifles, I think one of them was the SVA. Yeah, this Crimson Fate one, if you guys remember this. So this is a special one where every single attachment has the effect. Or has an effect option on it, I think. Maybe not. I thought this was one of them. I don't even know, but that was the intention of what they were going with. They said that at the Warzone 2
I think they hired your wife to build random guns for the bundles.
Probably. Honestly, I think she would do a better job. It would probably be more aesthetic. I think that really is what they go for. I think they just go for the aesthetic, even though some of them don't make sense in the packs. Like, they just want the whole visual of it to look good, more so than the builds to actually look good. But I don't know. I mean, like, are you ever going to buy this? The horse isn't too bad, but this build sure is. And if you're looking at it for this specific skin combo, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could be, if they're going for that, they could do something different.
A money perspective. And all the selling point of, hey, we're going to get these MW2 guns in MW3 was kind of a waste because literally none, maybe one, but literally almost none are viable. And that's terrible. So I think those could address a lot of issues. I think the game was more simplistic in Warzone 1. The rumor is they're getting rid of backpacks with BO6. Or when we get integration, we're going to get rid of the backpack system, which simplifies it. The reality is when you're thinking of a Call of Duty, what made it successful is gun-on-gun action. And if it impacts that in a negative way or a positive way, you got to...
Do you guys not like the backpack system in the game? Or do you like it right now? Where you have a bag that can store pretty much anything in it. Do you like this, or is it a bad thing? I think what's even crazier to me is that we had the Warzone 2 bag system in the game. Nope, it's all right. No, backpacks are terrible. I like it. I love it. No backpack. Too much BS. Love the bag. Absolutely good. Yes and no. Hate the backpacks. Never liked it. Can we agree, the backpack enjoyers, that the backpack system in this game is better than what it was in Warzone 2, where you needed to find the bag, and there was a medium bag, and there was a large bag? Would you guys agree with that? Yes, it's way better. Way better now, for sure. Especially for controller, yep. A couple people mentioning the 3-bag system. I will give you, or the 3 guns. I thought the 3 guns was pretty sick. I really enjoyed the 3 guns. I think that's probably a more contested point, but I thought that was fun because I loved having my sniper and then being able to switch to SMG AR. And you still had to like pull your bag up and hit some buttons to do it, so it wasn't just instantaneous to have the three weapons. But so yeah, pretty much everybody's in agreement. So this system is better than having to deal with all the bags in the last one. And I do think for the people that play the game a lot, I'm assuming that's you guys, that you play the game enough that you know how the bag system works. It is nice because it expands the way that you can play, in that it makes the game a bigger skill gap. It is a skill on its own to be able to manage the extra bag space. If you saw my game earlier when I got the win on Vondel, I had to do some bag finessing to get some extra smokes and duplicate that set me up in a, and I still screwed it up, but it could have set me up in a better position.
They should hire the streamers like you that love the gun building and gun plan of the weapons to test the weapons and fix them on your base response. Then again, that is common sense, and companies don't have that.
Well,
they would rather hire bots to do it.
A lot of the people that do play and test the games are bots, but here's the thing. That takes a lot of money and time, and when they can just release a game for free, or, you know, release a game and get all of that feedback for free from all the players, that's what they opt for. That's why, to me, even the betas that they do, those are just giant play tests, you know? They're not really changing anything about the game at that point, listening to feedback. I think they're just getting the, you know, they're doing maybe some balancing and such, but I don't think they're doing as much. I think that's more the polished game and a marketing thing at that point. Anyways, my point is if they do simplify it further, it will take some of the skill gap out and bring it closer to what the game initially was. And especially with, like, floating loot. It was so simple of a game. Easy to pick up, easy to play, easy to loot. When they complicated it all with all of the bags and everything, and then complicated it all even with just looting and putting the things in the bags and such, it does take away from the natural play of the game. I do tend to agree with you guys who said you like the bags. I like the bags better. I think they are fun. I think they're a good addition to the game. And it does add to a little bit of the skill gap. I think that the looting system could be much better than what it is, though. There's so many, even just small nuanced bugs, especially on mouse and key, that I've found. Even when you're trying to pick up loot and stow something, sometimes the button that shows there doesn't work. I think it's because I changed my keybinds, but there's so many things that just don't work well, where it's like, oh, now I hit G, even though it shows E that I need to push, doesn't work. And then sometimes you try and stow something, it gets stuck on the ground, and it, like, glitches into the ground, and you can't pick it up at all. It's just not worth it. If it was just simpler, it would be better. If it worked, it probably would be better. with how they have it, but it just doesn't work, unfortunately. So if they can simplify some of it, it could be good.
Make decisions based off that. Backpack.
Jared,
great
Andrew,
for Battle
thank you.
Royale.
Peter,
great for a lot
thank
of
you for the
things.
insane 1K.
But it's not great for gun-on-gun action. There's no element in that is good for gun-on-gun action. Holding 20 smokes, 20 Semtex, drill charges, 20 streaks, 100 self-revives.
Yeah,
none of those.
Dude, I hate that in solos. It still pisses me off. Like, I still play a lot of solos, but when you're killing, everybody has a self-res in that game. That was something I didn't like back in Caldera when they made guaranteed buy station or guaranteed fire sale zone 3. That also made self-reses free. Back then, when you went to a buy station, self-reses were free off of a fire sale. I hated it because everybody you would snipe in the head had a self-res. Now it's like that on crack, bro. Now everybody has a self-res because there's a million of them, and you can loot them off other people. You can carry extra. You can have 3 self-reses. 3 self-res was crazy, but I think it's even crazier now. At least it gets consumed when you kill somebody, but
those things are good for gunplay. Gun-on-gun action is just that. You see the other person, you guys shoot each other. If you have your lethal and tactical, you use them. Hopefully you have restock or munitions because you're not going to get them back. You don't have a backpack full of them. They would replace it hopefully with a satchel. So I think getting back to those things, that'll help. But the weapon thing is such an easy fix. Like just play with it. Easy. The other part is they give us ranked, which a lot of people want to rank back. I'm not part of that group. I tried ranked. I think ranked's fun, but not resurgence for 3 or 4 seasons. Like what? Why didn't we get big map ranked? Like, even if you don't like big map, like...
The thing is, to the point you even made, is they're saving all of these things for the new game. They're waiting for it all. There's a new game coming. They got to get everybody to buy it. They got to get everybody back on the hype wagon, everything, and they need content for that. So there's no point in them releasing it right now. This is why we're not seeing any big updates to the game, and why I don't expect any big updates. Some people were even saying that we were gonna get Verdansk back in season 4, and I'm just like, guys, come on, it's just not happening. Like we're in the middle of the COD cycle right now. This happens every time. How do you guys not? Wait, we gotta catch up. We gotta wake up. So
obviously, big map's been totally neglected. Like just
why I'm playing
so
many other. You just gotta play other games.
Who's gonna play big map? There's nothing to play for. 5th game, I ran into a cheater.
True though.
You can't even control that part. Not that the cheating is incredibly rampant, because obviously it has its highs and lows. Sometimes it gets bad, and then they figure it out. It gets good, and then it kind of has. So it's probably at a little bit of a worse peak, and then it'll go ahead and drop again. And that's kind of the part of Ricochet. It kind of reacts to new cheats, and it kind of got. So I don't blame it on that. I mean, obviously I wish it was perfect, but it is what it is. That's kind of just how hacking works when a game is a game. When you actually want to play a specific mode. So if I want to go play Resurgence solos right now, I have to wait a half an hour between matches, unless I die off rip, and then I could queue in again. You literally have to wait a half an hour to get back into Rebirth.
Yeah.
Like if I want to play Rebirth, I either have to play one of these other random modes with randoms, or if I want to play solos, then I have to wait for Fortune's Keep and Vondel. And it's like, or if I want to play Vondel, I have to wait a half an hour between matches. Like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Like, I know some games do map rotation or whatever, but usually they're comparable. Like,
the thing is, there's always a trade-off. I don't think, what's the better solution to this? Only have Rebirth on that one map. That gets even. I mean, we're talking about stale stuff. That's going to get even more stale. You have every single map as an option. The games are never going to load. Granted, Call of Duty's sometimes they do have that as an option. I don't mind the occasional other of these other maps coming into the rotation, but it might be nicer if they were at least at less of an interval. What I do is I just go play big map while Rebirth is on cooldown, and then I come back to Rebirth when it's ready. It would be nice if there was a better way to do that, or to at least indicate hey, I want to play this map, automatically do that or whatever. But I like there being more maps in the game. I want there to be more maps for big map as well. I think it's actually better that there's a rotation in the game. I don't mind the other ones. And they also still had it so it was Rebirth only for the first couple of weeks. Plus, you can go play Ranked if you really want to only play Rebirth. But that is trios. It's not solos. No matter what, they're going to leave somebody out of the pool of enjoying it. But, like, if they made it so that if Rebirth is their most popular map and they made it so that this is the active map for 1 hour and then it goes to 15 minutes, I wouldn't mind that too. The bigger problem that I have with all of the map rotations is when they tie it to this. On here, if you are trying to do your weekly challenges, some of the weeks, this being one of them, you have to go to Fortune's Keep in order to complete your weeklies. This week is as well, again, you have to go to Fortune's Keep, and it's locked behind a rotation of maps. It is so stupid, man. That's what pisses me off the most. It needs to just be for any of the maps on Resurgence, so I'm not sitting around waiting every half an hour to do challenges. That's the worst offender of this, in my opinion.
I have no interest in playing Bondo anymore. Like, what are we doing? Like, the map count, the player, the flow, all those things are completely different. I get they're both small maps, but it's terrible. The other thing that people have to deal with, and that I see all the time, I don't typically deal with it. I don't know if I just because I'm living in LA, but my connections are generally pretty good. I know I had an issue where I thought I had terrible connections. It was just a driver update that ruined everything. I had to roll it back. That fixed all my issues. People get shadow banned. They say they're not cheating. Then they use unlock tools, and it's like, well, duh, you got banned. You're an idiot for using an unlock tool or any other cheats. And
True.
It's kind of one of those things. So I thought I would address some of those things just because I know that like other people are having issues with the game. They're calling it stale, boring, whatever. That's the biggest issue for me. I'm still enjoying the game, doing some camos. Then we get new content every week. Like total missed opportunities. Nearly every aftermarket part is useless. Literally useless. Worse than the base version of the game. Like,
true.
Why not just throw some junk out there and, it's broken, jump on it, grind the hell out of it for 1 week and then like nerf it next week. Who cares, right? Just something different to shake it up. I literally log on.
It doesn't even have to be broken,
range,
but
either probably the holder, either if you like the 26 or the 5.56. SVA, which we've been using for 4 months. Like, come on, guys, what are we doing? And then we get the close range is like, all right, cool. Superi took over. We nerf it so it doesn't even change the damage profile relatively. And then we're still using the Superi. FJX, Horus, cool. And it's like, cool, that's all we got. They nerfed, I don't know.
To me, the biggest, like, it is true. Like, weapons is one of the biggest ways that they can add new content to the game. Just change the way that the game plays, is they change the weapons that are good. The best next way they have, which I think is even better, I mean, ideally, we just get new content in terms of maps. I want new maps. I want new, like, places to play the game, more so than even the new weapons. I like the new ways to play the game, the LTM they did recently with the mutation thing. I thought that was really fun, this one. I really enjoyed that. It'd be great if there was a way to play solos or there was rewards that actually made people want to play it, like the high mode, the getting high mode has got way more people playing it, I think, partly because of these cool skins that you get for it. Like, these are actually pretty sick. You don't get anything for doing the mutation mode. It doesn't count towards your win. You can't do nukes in it. If they could integrate all of those things into it, that'd be pretty sick, though. Like, we'd have way more people playing because nobody even queues the LTM. Or let us do it in private matches so we could do it.
I don't know.
With the community.
That's my thoughts on it. If you think I left anything out, why the game's stale, let me...
Yeah, but there you go, guys. JGod makes a lot of good videos. Hopefully some good discussion. You guys enjoyed my look at it. Thank you to sending it to me over on my Discord server. If there's any other good ones you guys want me to look or talk on as well, feel free to send it in to my viral channel over on Discord. It does have to be something that, has quite a bit of views, so it's a little bit more already gone through the ringer a bit, so we can spend some time on it. Fix the servers. That's what a lot of people in chat were saying too. We need higher tick rate server, but that's why the game's not competitive. It's just, they make it competitive with ranked and whatever, but the lag on consoles is horrible right now. I play on PS5, and the moment I get into a gunfight during certain situations, it lags and causes me to mistrack enemies. For me, it's at the beginning of a lot of the games. I don't have packet loss. I don't have any issue, and there's like the characters are moving in low FPS. Crazy the weekly challenges will be do this on Fortune's Keep, and you can't just go play that match on the said map. That is the worst part. This is right here. This is what we were just talking about. Hopefully COD listens to Uncle J God. Another underrated topic not mentioned in this video is vehicles and how they handle now in Warzone 1 compared to Warzone 1. They handle better than what they did in Warzone 2 if you choose the right ones. But this is a very true point. Many people took pride in the min-maxing of helicopters, SUVs, TAC rovers by drifting around tight corners, chopping people up, and a unique aspect of other battle royales like Apex, PUBG that they don't have. Everything else listed is spot on. The map rotation issue has been around. Yeah, I would tend to agree with the vehicles. I'd rather have them be fun. Although when they added the motorbike, that was one of the most terrible things they ever added to the game. It was controlled so badly. It was so bad, dude. 100 guns can only pick 5 weapons at the moment. It's like one of the best things about this game is the variety of weapons that they have. All right, I think, yeah, most people are talking about servers, etc. Cool. Yeah, there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed. Little look at it.